Welcome, kayak anglers. You are tuning into the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network, kayak fishing's best network of shows with great hosts covering all things kayak fishing, bringing you special guests covering topics such as shore fishing, river trips, gear reviews, angler profiles, tournament news, and more. Sit back, relax, let's do this.
I'm your host, Adam Pross, and this is the River Run Podcast. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the River Run Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Adam Pross, and I thank you for stopping on by. I'm always excited to have you guys here, listening, watching. Thank you for all the encouragement, and at the same time, I appreciate each and every one of you. You guys are fantastic, and I know my guests appreciate it, and I know I do. So welcome to another episode. Before we dive into my guest tonight, Rus Snyders, he is backstage right now. But let's dive into the folks that really help out at the River Run Podcast. So obviously, first of all, dubrofishing.com. Go check them out. I'm gonna push this again, do more utility cup. It is the hottest kayak, boat, whatever you need it for, cup. It is fantastic. I used mine last year, and I have one this year. Like I said, I'm got another one on order. Go check it out. So if you are going to be shopping at dubrofishing.com, because the folks over at Dubro Fishing, who also love the River Run Podcast, hooked our listeners up with a promo code RRUN10. Check it out. Use it. That's what it's there for. When you cash out, save some money. Dubro Fishing, big shout out to those guys. I appreciate it. Yak Attack, the fine folks at Yak Attack, thank you for being part of the River Run Podcast. Yakattack.usa, go check them out. They don't need any introduction there. Yak Attack is all about rigging the dream. Wade is always coming up with cool new videos and whatnot. So go check them out. Tell them the Adam Pross sent you over. Also, the fine folks at Jackson Kayaks, they, not just whitewater, they got a lineup of boats that are meant for fishing rivers, lakes, saltwater, you name it. Go check out the complete lineup of boats over at jacksonkayaks.com. And of course, my favorite, Hard Knocks Kayak Fishing. All the boys in Southern Ontario, I gotta say, you guys rock. Steve Ite, he's always putting together a good group of meetups. Just show up, bring a PFD, show up, have a good time, walk away with some raffles, and at the end of the day, who knows? You might have caught a personal best. You may have caught a couple more laughs, and you know what? You're gonna probably want to come to the next one. So Hard Knocks Kayak Fishing. Go check them out on Instagram. Tell them Adam sent you. And if you see Steve, give him a hug for me, because Steve deserves all the hugs he can get. Don't forget Paddle and Fin. So many great shows coming out. You can go check them out on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. But paddleandfin.com has everything you need. And make sure to do the same thing. There's a lot of great shows chasing the tide. There is everything that you need in for saltwater, freshwater, you name it. Check it out. You're going to learn something. You're going to get a good couple laughs out of it. And they always have some phenomenal guests. Another one is the Kayak Adventure Series. Drew Gregory's little masterpiece of a tournament circuit. Just stopped off in Springfield, Ohio. And that was quite the event. The gentleman who ended up winning on the team side, his name is Dylan R. He is known on Instagram as the Midwest River Rat. He is not just a phenomenal fisherman who also loves smallies, but he is a fantastic and quite a very talented photographer. So it is always cool seeing his shots. Actually, one of my backgrounds on the computers I use has it, and he'll tell you that I was like, yo, dude, you got to send me some of these pictures because like I want to put them on as my background. I want photos like this in my house. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, but like as Josh said it, like I'm just a smallie nerd. But yeah, so no, big congratulations to Dylan R and Jason Myers. Go check out the Midwest River Rat on Instagram. You will be pretty jaw-dropping on the photography that he has. So check it out. But yeah, no, at the end of the day, welcome to the show. And without further ado, I want to bring on my guest because we're here not to talk to me. We're here to talk to my guest. So my guest tonight is the one and only Rus Snyders. And I say he's the one and only because I thought he had a twin while we were trying to figure out all the stuff. But
technical complications.
Yeah, the cell phone complications and
here's my internet storms coming through, and the phone wasn't working. Switched to the computer, hoping to be in the. Used to do my podcast in the little tackle room. That's some of the stuff we're going to go over today. Some of the different lures and tackle. But
yeah,
little office room we'll have to do here.
Yeah,
good connection out the computer. So we're good.
And at the end of the day, we're going to make this work because we are like. I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to stop by the Ring Room podcast. Rus, you are, I think, a lot of people look up to your not just your lifestyle and your tournament fishing, but a lot of people I think just really are inspired by what you've done and what you've accomplished. And I think that is worth noting because you're not just a professional kayak angler. You at one point also were a river. I think you were guiding out in Tennessee, was it?
Yeah, in California where I grew up.
Yeah, thanks
for having me on too. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, and then like I said, you've been on my list of people to talk with, and so no, I'm really excited. So before we dive into anything like drastic here and we get on with the show, but I'll let you just take the stage and you can introduce yourself and just let the folks who are just getting to know Rus Snyders.
Okay, yeah, I'm originally from California, moved out to Tennessee about 12 years ago or so. Grew up doing all kinds of fishing, a little fly fishing, did some bass tournaments and some guiding. Back in California, I did a little ocean fishing and moved out to Tennessee, and really been, especially the first thing that really intrigued me was just all the rivers and creeks and all the cool areas to explore around here. And I'd say river smallie fishing is definitely at the top of the list as far as, like I said, I've done a lot of different types of fishing. That one takes the cake there on what I like to do the most. So it's a perfect podcast to be on since that's what you specialize on.
Yeah, so it's funny. As like I'm a river fisherman myself, kayak angler for the river, and I love chasing river smallmouth. So when I put this podcast together, and I was like, I got to come up with a name. I was just like, I have a Jackson Liska, and its nickname is River Run.
Cool.
And yeah, so and the Liska is a great name for the boat, but this boat has just been one of those boats that I call the River Run because I usually run it on the river. So I always like having guests who want to chat river fishing, and it's not just river fishing. We'd like to talk about all sorts of fishing, but no, that's cool. So Rus, I gotta ask you, at the same time, you know, you're out there right now, Tennessee. You're just coming back from, you know, you have a pretty hefty schedule, don't you? Like
Yeah,
you're really all over the place.
I have been. Yeah, I mean, I took a little bit of this early in the year off. I had to miss the first couple of Bassmasters. I had a big like kitchen remodel, pretty much gutted the whole thing and part of my living room. So that kept me busy pretty much every day for several months, and still I finish a little bit to finish up here, but I was doing that for a while, and then hit the road pretty hard. I guess it's the beginning of April or something like that. I just got back from a trip. I had the Oklahoma tournament. I actually went down to Baja, drove like 8,000 miles in a 3 week period, which was definitely a record
Wow.
for me. And I had a wedding down in San Diego from an old childhood friend, and another buddy that was out there had been talking to me to do a Baja trip. So I drove my truck, yeah, all the way down to the tip of Baja, almost to Cabo, and did some
Wow.
fishing out there. And went to the wedding. Got to see my folks back in California. My mom, she was outside of Tahoe a little ways, Grass Valley. So I got to hang out with her, and then went to the 10 killer tournament. Got home and was home for like 2 days, and then went up to Ohio to see a few friends that were really good friends of mine here in Nat when I lived in Nashville. I live just outside of Nashville now, maybe 20 minutes out. But yeah, they live up there in Columbus, so it worked out good where I can see them, spend some time with them the weekend before, and did the Kayak Adventure Series, which was a large area. It went all the way to Columbus. It was about it was the center of it was in Springfield, but it went all the way to Columbus, all the way to about Cincinnati. I mean, it was like a third of Ohio, but it
Wow.
was a good time. I like, when there's a lot of water to kind of pick through and go through. Some people don't like it, but me personally, I like it when you got to do a lot of work as far as map study and find cool places to access, and all that aspect of the tournament fishing is something I really like.
So I gotta ask you though, because like as you are a very successful tournament angler, and you were just talking about the Kayak Adventure Series, and with Drew's, you know, it's not just like a one body of water, like it is multiple bodies of water that he has employed it into this tournament. And you know, it's really anybody's ball game at this point. Like, you know, you could go fish a lake and you could do really well. You could go fish a river and do really well. When you use this approach in your own homework and whatnot, like that has to be a bit more kind of nerve wracking, I guess, in a sense, because it's not like we're all getting in on one body of water. It's like I could have a really good day up on the river and you could have a really slow day on the lake, but then, you know, we cross paths and switch it. And next thing you know, you're now in the on top of the leaderboard. You know, like that's kind of exciting. But I'm sure for you, you know, when you're kind of strategizing through your, you know, homework, like map studies and whatnot, like that's a lot of water to eliminate. You know,
It
like
was, and you can't eliminate it all, and just got to come to the conclusion that there could be like a sneaky little hard to find area that some locals gonna know about, that somebody like me from out of town's gonna come and just overlook because there's just too many places to kind of get through everything. But and that happened in one, I think, is a tournament in like, was it in Kentucky, where some guy like hiked his kayak in like 3 miles to these, it's all public land, but there's no like road, there's just trails that go to these lakes, and he
wow,
hiked his kayak in like the night before or something like that, like 3 miles, and left it at the lake. uh,
wow,
I thought that was cool though. If you're gonna do something like that,
it's
I thought
very
it was a
stealthy.
cool story. Yeah, and this one, it was good because, like you were saying, where you have so many options as far as the lakes and the rivers. Ohio doesn't have a lot of big lakes; it has a lot of small lakes. Most of them get really pressured, and there's some decent fish in them, but it's pretty tough fishing in the lakes. You really got to have it pretty dialed in. But in the rivers are surprising. I didn't realize how good especially the Great Miami River. That's the
Yeah.
one I fish, and the winter fish. There was a number of guys in the top 10, but it was almost 50-50, especially after the first day. You can actually tell because there's not a lot of big river largemouth. It's pretty much the largemouth. If you're catching good largemouth, it's in the lakes. And if you're catching good smallmouth, it's in the rivers. I think there's one lake, like Alum Creek Lake that had both largemouth and smallmouth.
Oh, that's cool.
But the rest of them were all pretty much all largemouth. I wasn't excited. My team partner, gosh, yeah, he did find some largemouth, but it was kind of off the river, not in the river. He had all smallmouth, and it was all of a sudden he ran into a little special something. But anyway,
But your team partner this year was Steve Baker, right?
Steve Baker, yeah.
Yeah. So, and last year he was with was it Ryan Parker, I believe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool. Like, they kind of had a legendary first year there. Well, especially Ryan did. He caught a lot of big fish. But how do you like that? Like
last year too, the first one I think that kicked off, I couldn't commit to a whole season. There's some conflicts with some of the tournaments and some of the scheduling. So, but yeah, I fished the last year with him at the Shoaly Palooza, the very first one. Me and him teamed up together, and that was a blast. I hope we go back there with those shoal bass. That was so much fun.
that was in Georgia, was that not?
It was, yeah. It's like the Flint, the Okmulgee, and the Chattahoochee River. But Ryan's an awesome fisherman too. He's this person to just soak up as much knowledge as he can. He's so hungry to learn. It's fun to be just to fish with him and to strategize and game plan. He's kind of got a truck set up like mine, so he just sleeps in the truck in random parking lots wherever. And
Nice. Car camping. I like it.
yeah, he's implemented a lot of just similar things that I do, and I can tell that it's paying off for him. He's really he's getting pretty good pretty quick.
I myself have a 2016 Dodge Journey, and my Dodge Journey is like the perfect car camping vehicle. I'm like 6'3", and I'll be honest, I've slept phenomenal at boat ramps. I've slept on the riversides, Walmart parking lots, wherever I'm traveling, highway park and sleep areas. And yeah, I absolutely am addicted to the whole car camping lifestyle, dude.
You have all the necessities and you're comfortable. It's like I sleep in the truck more times than not, even when we get Airbnbs. Like my truck will be more comfortable than the shitty bed that they have in there sometimes. And unless it's really hot, once it gets to like the kind of dog days of summer, if it's hot and
Yeah.
I have a fan that's in there. I need to figure out like a little air conditioning system, and then I'm solid.
That would be cool.
I just got a little portable shower, using that in Baja a lot because we were just camping out on the beaches, just in the middle of nowhere out there, and it's like an 8-gallon tank, and you just hook up like a tire inflator thing. It was only like 200 and something bucks at Amazon. It's got a little shower head and a hose. It was sweet. It's similar to the Yakima one, but it's like a third of the price. And it's good.
No, that's really cool. And like, look how far you're going, like to like the Baja, like, and that's pretty neat to, not a lot of people get the opportunity to actually like camp out on a beach. I've camped out on a beach before, in British Columbia,
Cool.
but, yeah, no, like that's a cool experience. And it would have been even cooler to like do it like with kayaks and like fishing and like, yeah, that's a really, really neat vibe to have, and just to be out there. And like you said, like you're packing all that stuff
and explore. That's what all these, that's why I do all these kayak tournaments. I feel like kayak tournaments, as opposed to the boat tournaments too, which I used to do, I just like the element of the adventure and the exploring and getting in more like wild places, and not always, that's what I like about river fishing, I think, more than the lakes too, because the lakes are just filled up with a bunch of, especially on the weekends, just ski boats and pontoon boats, all the noise and and it's all right. But if I had a preference, man, when you're out in those rivers and it's just nice and quiet and serene and all the nature's there. And I was at 10 Killer. I don't know, probably a lot of you guys saw the videos up the river there, and a whole family of like baby otters kind of popped up on this point and started checking me out. And I had one swim all the way up to I could have touched the thing. It was like inches away from like right next to me in my kayak, little baby otter. And then it swam back and then let the other ones know it was okay. And then they all started swimming around me and stuff. And that's what it's all about right there. Just cool stuff like that. It's what I love about kayak fishing.
Yeah, I gotta share this because this is super cool. Hold on here at this stage. So
Oh yeah, there you go.
this is the video here. This is really cool. And like look at that family of otters. And then one's just like, I want to be your friend, Russ. Like that's Rus Snyders right there. I'm gonna come on over. And he like just comes up. Like and look at the little guy. Like he's oh dude, like that is that is like super cool. Like that I think is what makes kayak fishing so neat. Like you wouldn't ever see a whole family of otters like that come up and just like swim up to a boat, right? Because boats, in all fairness, are like these big loud, big motors, and like they're not, where like a kayak is just, you're moving through, and even if you have a motor on it, like you run Torpedo, you're just kind of
way less intrusive, just
yes,
environment,
exactly.
environment kind of thing.
So no,
until you're a lot stealthier, and which helps with the fishing too, especially in tight quarters. Just having that stealthiness, it just gives you the ability to make shorter casts without them feeling your presence. Or in a bass boat, you're in those tight quarters and up creeks and rivers, you're bumping into things or just moving a lot more water, and it's just you got to make longer casts. Those fish can feel you instead of kayak. They might, depending on the water clarity, they might 10 feet away, they might feel your presence. Where at a boat, it's like 20 feet away. So it's just a lot harder to fish the style of fishing I like out of a boat as well, I think.
Now, I gotta ask you too, like in that experience there with all those otters, does that kind of like at the same time like tell you something about that ecosystem, that like there's probably like it's got to have some pretty decent fishing there? You know what I mean? Like to have that many otters to sustain that.
So I was on the second day. So on the first day, I got them pretty good. It was a small area, and I spent a lot of time in there. I was worried. I had a feeling I only caught one fish there. So I came back the second day, and those otters were there. And so after I saw the baby otters right there, I went around the corner, and then as soon as I was going to the little pocket that I was fishing, the mom otter was right behind me, popped its head up next to me, looked at me, swam up ahead of me, like literally right where I got that big fish. It was going to be the big fish of the tournament, and somebody broke it in the last 15 minutes. It was like a fat 21 and change. It was like a 6-pounder.
Holy Jesus!
Right on the piece of wood that it was on, you'd see little air bubbles coming up, and I was looking on my live scope, and I could see it just literally hunting like right where I was. The mom otter was huge. It was probably the biggest otter I've ever seen. I'm guessing it was the mom. It was the dad. I don't know. It was big. But yeah, it just, they know where the fish are, just like they know where the fish are better than us. So
They're the real live scope. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, for real.
that's
But it was, this thing's happened. And it's the rest of the river was pretty tough for me. Drew got him way up there, but yeah. But like I said, yeah, things like that. That's what it's all really about, is seeing all that cool stuff and exploring.
so. You're just like, since we're on the topic of tournaments, what do you got next coming up, like for your tournament schedule here?
Native Gunnersville this weekend, but I think I'm just gonna. Every time I come home, I was gone for over a month, and then I was home for like 2 days, and then gone for another week and a half. So I got a lot of catching up. Been doing got a bunch of power washing jobs lined up, and I got Gunnersville, which I'll probably just show up and fish. And then there's the kayak team series on Nickajack. So both of those are pretty close to me, about 2 hours or so, 2.5 hours. So I got those two, and then I'm not gonna. I was gonna go up to New York for Champlain, but I think it just makes more sense to stay. I'm gonna skip out on that one, and had a better finish at 10 killer than I would consider it. But I think I'm gonna skip out and just make some lures. That's another thing I know you want to talk about, is some of the lure making. For Susky, I'm gonna do 2 weeks at Susky. They got the Kayak Adventure Series there, and then the Kayak Team Series the next weekend. So I'm gonna spend 2 weeks up there, and after I do these 2 local tournaments, which I'll probably only get a little time to practice, I'm gonna about a month off to finish up my kitchen and my kitchen remodel. Got to get a countertop and the backsplash. I'm done with that, so that'd be nice. And just give me time to knock out some power washing jobs, make some lures, and that way I'll be ready to go. There's a lot of times, I guess, through these several years that I've taken big chunks of time on. I think it really helps. Right? It's kept me from burning myself out. I've hit little points like that where I'm just go, 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 like too much. And it just, I get just a little overwhelmed by it, or just get so caught behind with other stuff that by the time I get home, it's just a bit of a mess, everything. So,
Like
but
I
it helps.
want,
And then I can get everything. It helps so much just being. I noticed the difference, like going into a tournament where I could be prepared, and that's the biggest thing is when you don't take breaks and you just go, go, go. You get home, there's these other things you got to life stuff you got to take care of, and then you're going into the next tournament then without being properly prepared too. So I'll be prepared for Susky. But
do
yeah,
you
I'm gonna take on champagne.
do you find that to be like when like because you talked about spending quite a bit of time on the road away from home, like how do you prepare for that, like not just like preparing for your fishing, but like how do you prepare for like that whole like mental aspect of it too, like you're far away from home, you're dealing with a whole new environment, and at the same time you still got to take care of all this stuff, and you just spoke about not really in some ways burning yourself out or hitting that point where you kind of plateau and you're like, oh, I don't know if this is really like all it's meant up to be, like it's that idea. Like what do you like, what do you do, like you were talking about taking breaks, like how do you prepare for all that?
Yeah, it's hard. The hardest thing is just I guess exercising and like eating good. Um, where I've just found the importance in that. When I get home, I definitely make time to exercise. Do a lot of like indoor rock climbing or running or some
Nice, me
yoga.
too.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
dude,
enjoy
rock
all.
climb.
See, yeah, I do a little bit of outdoor. I want to get more into that, but it's just hard. Yeah, fishing. There's only so many things I could do, but I do a lot of indoor rock climbing just to kind of stay in shape, and the yoga, just the toll it takes being on the road too. Like on my back, I had a lot of back issues, and doing the yoga and stuff really helped. As long as I could do it like once a week, like I don't have problems, or just especially when I'm at home, like getting exercise. But when I'm on the road for like a month, and all I'm doing is either sitting down in my kayak or sitting down in my truck seat, and it's
Yeah.
all the time, like I start getting problems with that. So whenever I get back home, I always get on top of like trying to get back in shape a little again.
One of the biggest things that I found after my accident on the river is that I need to stretch every day. And I know a lot of people who stretch every day just because they know it's like it's something they need to do. It helps with the tension and whatnot. So I started this back in November, and I stretch every day, and it is like it's like a game changer. Like I can't get over how much more, like for aches and whatnot, like and it really lies where your mental, that mental toughness, but just the idea that you aren't like, because being so tense and whatnot, it weighs, you know what I mean? And like when you're in those postures of, whether you're driving or walking, like all of that, like it wears on you, like we're not getting any younger. So we might as well take care of ourselves while we can. But yeah, no, I totally agree with the diet thing and rock climbing. That's awesome. I absolutely love indoor rock climbing. I'm like more the bouldering side of it. But yeah, no, it's great. It is such an awesome physical activity.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's cool. So
I need
if
to get
you're
more of a stretch. It seems once I get on the road and go fishing, all other things just like all I'm thinking about is fishing, and it's like I gotta get better about. Have been getting better about at least getting a little more sleep this year. That was one thing. Before I just go so hard, I just run on like 3 hours of sleep, like night after night after night. For practice, I go dawn to dusk, and then just do map study and just go to, I don't know, rig stuff. And it's just so now I at least like make time to sleep, and I need to get better about making a little time to at least just do like how much, like what do you spend, like 15 minutes doing your stretching in the morning or something?
So I do my stretching in the evening, and it usually takes me around 12 to 15 minutes to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just an easy routine. Doesn't have to be, anything painful or strenuous. It's just, a quick stretch, and work all the body joints and whatnot that need to get stretched, and muscles. And yeah, no. So in the end, Doesn't
It's
take long.
definitely fisherman, especially right here in your neck and underneath your shoulder blades, just from kind of being hunched like that. And it's just, yeah, I bring this little back massage thing. I got it like on Amazon. You just like
Nice.
put your arms through it. And I couldn't even tell you how many people I bring it to the tournaments and people start using it and they just buy one. It's like $40. I guarantee I've sold at least 20 of those things to people checking them, using it. Like
So you,
$40 and boom, end up buying it. But yeah, it's a big thing with just with all fishermen in general. Is just that you're doing it for such long periods throughout the day. It's not like other sports or activities where it's just like a couple hours every day or a few hours. It's like these long 10-hour days, and if you don't take care
yeah.
of yourself physically, it'll definitely wear on you after time.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But yeah, and at the same time, that's awesome that you notice this and you're actually like taking that moment to say like maybe I should be doing this, like because I still want to be able to do this and I still want to be able to go there and I still want to be able to sit and back issues are nothing. There's nothing fun about back issues. You know what I mean? Like it is daunting pain and it's relentless and I can't imagine especially then getting into a car and having to drive after being on the water for x amount of hours and then yeah, so no, but really, like it's always interesting, like the mindset that as tournament anglers like you, people who are like really professional kayak angler, it's interesting just to hear your insight to all of the mental and physical endurance that you guys put yourselves through.
Yeah, no, it's a lot, and just finding ways to just be efficient. I make my own food. I spend the whole day and like make my own food. I got a little refrigerator that's powered by a couple big Dakota lithium batteries that are in my truck, and so that helps a lot too, just on not having to run and get groceries or go out and eat meals and um, just everything. I sleep in my, like I said, I'm sleeping in the truck, and but yeah, having just by having everything right where you need it and have all those, just all the preparation that kind of goes into all that stuff. I got a new shower on my, I think I told you that, yeah. So
Yeah, that's cool. That's really
yeah,
cool.
that's just being self-sufficient is definitely a big thing of tournament fishing and being able
So
to live on the road.
So can we say that you might actually be starting a like YouTube channel for Russ's cooking because you sound like you're doing a kitchen reno and you probably
I
sound like
cook,
you're a chef,
I end up cooking the same things over and over. It's like 5 things I can cook, but I got it down pretty well at this point. I've done it about a million times, so I keep.
No, that's awesome, dude. That's really cool. So I think one of the other things, that I did want to touch on is, being a guide, like what kind of got you into like you started out as a guide or was this something that just kind of came out of nowhere?
I started out tournament fishing when I was, I guess, like 16 or so. Like with my dad, we had a little Zodiac raft. It was almost like it's kind of going full circle because I started out fishing this 11-foot Zodiac raft with my dad, and he fished. He's got me into fishing when I was really young. But by the time I was probably 10 or 12, I was watching all the fishing shows and reading all the, at that point, I was just kind of taking the lead and like, gotta get this, we gotta get this. So we got a little raft and we'd fish bass boat tournaments. We had a little bow mount motor on it, a 6 horsepower Johnson. There's a tiny little deck that I could stand on and put a little couple things underneath. We had a big cooler for a live well, and there was barely enough room. We just had enough room for both of our feet to like stand pretty much, but we did tournaments out of that. And and yeah, it kind of evolved from there. Eventually got a bass boat. I forget what I was going with that. What was the question that you're
No, I was asking you as a guide,
Oh,
like
as a guide. So
yeah.
I got into tournament fishing uh, first at a bass boat when I was like 19 or 20 or so. And probably at around 25, I was doing okay in the tournaments, and I just hit like I was just going through a hard time kind of in life too, and hit a period where I saw all my money and my savings pretty much disappear just from fishing tournaments and traveling around. And the money that I had saved, maybe 30 grand, which isn't that much, but when you're in your early 20s or so is a lot.
Sure.
And that disappeared, and I was like, I got to find a more kind of steady. And it's hard in California too, because where I was living, it's like any tournament that I had, whether it was Clear Lake or the Delta or Berryessa or something, it's all like a few hours away. There was nothing. I guess the Delta was the closest thing to me. It was about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, but with gas at like 5 something a gallon, and spending 40 something bucks on bridge toll, $20 launch fee, and have like muscle inspections, and it's just and repair. Like it's just too hard to. Just wasn't really feasible, which was a big part of moving out of California and moving to Nashville, knowing that there's so many areas and tournaments to fish, and it's so centrally located that it makes that lifestyle that I wanted a lot more feasible. And I was fortunate to have a couple of my good childhood friends moved out to Nashville about a year before I did. I took that as like a sign, as an opportunity for me to get out and do it. If they didn't move out, I probably wouldn't have moved. But having some good friends that moved out here, I just came out and was a roommate for a few years, and we all still out here. So I got my place out in Pegram now, a little west of Nashville. So it's nice being out of the city and having it's peaceful out here where I'm at.
You like that countryside living,
Yeah,
like
got a little
nice
creek
and quiet.
running through my yard and stuff, and it's a cool spot.
No, that's cool. That's cool. No, guiding, if you're an
Oh,
angler and you love
yeah.
to
I just
fish,
need to
it's
get on
kind
it.
of
So
hand in hand.
eventually, I ran out of money is when I started guiding, just because the tournament fishing wasn't feasible. So it was about a 5-year period in California, probably from when I was like 25 to 30. And at first, it was just like the local tackle shop that knew me. There was a guy that came in there looking for somebody to fish these local lakes that were somewhat local. It's like an hour away. It was just south of San Jose. It was Calero and Anderson. And they called me and they're like, "Hey, this guy's looking for somebody to take him out." And I'd never done guiding before, and tournament fishing was, kind of not going well. So I went out with him. I didn't know what to expect. We had a great time, and then he ended up going out with me on a pretty regular basis. Probably did 20 trips with him, but I started. That kind of sparked in me to say, "Hey, why don't I start, guiding?" I've done power washing, where I power wash decks and fences, driveways and houses, stuff like that. I've been doing that since I was like 17 or so.
Oh, wow.
So I've always had kind of the two. It's always been this balance between the power washing and the fishing. And at one point, like I said, when I started doing the guiding, it was more like 90% power washing, 10% guiding. But eventually, by like the 5th year, it was probably 75% guiding, 25% power washing. But having that type of business where I can kind of turn it on and off, I can be pretty flexible with the schedule. I'm in and out in usually a couple days, 2-3 days. So it's a good balance to, if somebody wants to do something like this or pursue fishing as a career, having a side business like that you can keep small and not. One point I had a few employees, but if for what I'm wanting to do, just having to manage all the employees and all that stuff just makes it too complicated. So I just keep it simple and line up a few jobs when I get back, um, and usually helps out and kind of helps. It's good balance with the fishing too.
No, that's it. And you just talked about it right there, like having that balance, like it's a tournament angler. It's that's like a lot of people's dream is to really do what you do, being able to go to all these places and fish all these different tournaments, but then at the same time having that balance where like you said, you can come back and you're not necessarily relying on these big top finishes for these big payouts, where you still have some sort of an income coming in as a side business or business of your own personal business. And power washing, there you go, like it's
really takes the pressure off too. I see a lot of guys that are trying to that don't have something like that are all in on the fishing. The amount of pressure that it puts on you, and then the amount of obligations for sponsor stuff or all this other stuff can really really affect how you perform in the turn, and so much
oh,
of
for
the
sure.
going on to that, sometimes it takes away from the actual fishing stuff. But by having the power washing, it's been a good balance for me for sure.
No, that's awesome. So I gotta ask you, you're a tournament angler, you do guiding, so you must have like a tackle kingdom. of, gear. And it's also noted that you have spoken about tackle crafting, where you make a lot of your own lures. And I think that's really cool. Like, and the reason I do is because for myself, about 2 winters ago, I started making my own jigs, and it was just kind of something I thought I would do in the winter time. And I really followed this off of Jeff Little. Jeff Little had talked a lot on his YouTube channel about tackle crafting, and I was just like, oh, this would be kind of cool. So I ordered some skirts, and I got some hooks, and and I did my own finesse jigs and whatnot. But since then, I've kind of gone a little further, and I've tied all sorts of different jigs, and like swing head jigs, and swim jigs is another one that I like to do. Change the skirts on chatterbaits and whatnot. But like, what's tackle crafting for you, man? Like, what do you like?
Yeah, a lot of those same things. There's so many aspects to tackle crafting, where some people pour plastics, and there's all the swim bait guys kind of, molding, making all those glide baits and stuff. For me, it's always been pretty much anything with a silicone skirt. I've done a lot, like, since I was probably 14 or so is when I started tying jigs. Never, yeah. Since then, it started evolving from jigs. Like, and then the next thing I was making spinner baits and buzz baits and chatter baits, and then eventually I got into airbrushing. Like, you can buy these knockoff lures, so like the Megabat, like the Vision 110s, which are like $25 or something like that. Maybe these knockoffs for like $2 that you get on eBay. And I was like, heck, I'm gonna start just painting my own. And that way, the cool thing about painting them is you can get whatever color you want. Like, let's say you're using a DT6 and it only comes in so many colors. I don't really like a lot of the Rapala colors. They've actually got some new ones out there, but yeah, you have a certain lure that works good, but you wish you could have it in a different color that a different company makes. Or, like I said, for each crankbait, they might only make it in like 10 colors or something like that. And really, like, there's, yeah, if you can have that same lure in a different color, it would really help out. So yeah, and just save you money on the cost of it. But it takes a while to make them. When it comes to the airbrushing the lures, I'll do a batch. It takes about 2-3 hours. I'll do like 6 of them, all the same color, maybe different baits. But yeah, just buying the blanks. I got a couple right here. Sorry, these ones are pretty worn out, but they've caught a lot of fish. So
oh, nice.
Little craws. Yeah, this one's really worn out, but I've caught. It's just like a little spro. It can't even get. The hard thing about these knockoffs is they'll have a batch of them, and some of them will work really good, and all of a sudden they're gone. You can never find them again. But I can't, find these ones with a little circuit board. But that's a really good one. It's caught a lot of fish in the rivers. That's one of my first ones I painted too, since pretty worn out at this point. But these little 1.5 square bills, there's a lot of knockoffs. These little 1.5s. They work great. And the cool thing is too, is you can buy them with different rattles. This one has like 3 rattles. They make a single knock, and then they make like a silent too. So you just start getting to learn by making your own lures. You learn so much because you have to pay more attention to, like, okay, which one's working and why is it working? Especially with lures. The thing that's taken me the longest to really I'd say perfect, because I haven't perfected it, but the longest to kind of get better at is the spinner baits. I get all my lead from Cast Industries. They make a lot of, I think they make Z-Man stuff. They make a lot of other like bigger known companies stuff. There's a huge factory, Cast Industries. I think it's in Indiana, and they'll do packaging for you. They'll do as much as you want, but you got to buy in bulk. So you got to spend, like, if I want like a 3/8 ounce spinner bait head, you have to spend minimum of like $100, and they're about, I don't know, 80 cents a piece or something like that. So you got to get maybe 120 of them unpainted. If you get them painted, then you have to, the same thing, you got to do 100 green pumpkin one, or so I just get them unpainted. I paint them. But there's so much that goes on with like a spinner bait, for example, with just the thickness of the wire, the distance between the head and the line tie, the distance from the line tie to the end where the blade is, the blade sizes, the distance between, the top, in this case, Colorado blade, and And this blade, all that stuff it really plays a big part in getting the, a lot of times if you don't get it right, like the second blade right here won't spin, or just won't even have the vibration. It might even look good in the water. But it's just that this is get it just right, where it's just tuned just right, and then it and I've tweaked it over the time. I'm like, okay, what happens if I put a little bit longer arm? What happens if I change this blade to a little bigger blade? Like, what does it do? And like this one, so these are the two ones that I use here, and this one's like one of those that has the weight, in the center of the skirt, more or less, or the skirt.
Those are what I like.
These ones, yeah, and these ones.
Yeah.
So this one I don't use a trailer. He's a pretty short arm, and the heads actually. It's a new thing that I've been doing is instead of using like powder coat, because the spinner baits are really hard to powder coat. I bought one of the little guns that you can spray the powder coat, but it was like, well, it wasn't working good. I couldn't figure it out. So what I do now with these heads is I actually paint them with a Sharpie, and then I go over it with like a clear coat DevCon 30-minute epoxy. It's the same coating that I use on these crankbaits, and it's really durable. Stuff doesn't hardly come off. So I'll paint it with a Sharpie, and then in the clear coat, I'll put in some glitter, or I have different like pearlescent, like a blue pearl that I kind of put in there too.
Wow.
And it makes these heads way more durable than anything else that I've found by using that DevCon. And it saves time. It's a lot faster than having to do all the powder coat. I just paint them up with the Sharpies, and then pop on little eyes. I don't know how good your viewers can
So
see it.
so that one right there with more of the belly style weight, that
Yeah.
one there is you would not run a trailer on it.
No,
But
this one I wouldn't run a trailer on. And then this other head that I had right here, I used to use it all the time. I could never get it to work right. And then one day I put like a little dipper on it, a little swim bait trailer, and it was just perfect. That made all the difference. And then this one is a really good one. I use it more in kind of colder water when I'm wanting to like slow roll it a little bit
yeah,
more.
get that thump going back to side.
Yeah, the weight of this just balanced it different. But yeah, make like big musky jigs, even stuff like this. And the cool thing that I've done is for a hook keeper, I use this wire. It's like for shark fishing. It's some sort of like saltwater shark fishing wire. I don't know if you
No
can
way.
see it right there. I tie it on
Yeah.
with thread, and I use it just like a little hook keeper, kind of like the jackhammer. The wire,
Yeah.
as far as having a trailer, it goes with the best. And I'll wrap it in thread and put epoxy on it. So that's been a good hook keeper. Same thing, these heads right here, I just paint with the Sharpies and just epoxy over it, and they turn out pretty good. Really durable too. You can see the little hook keeper tie on there.
Y-
But yeah, I've just learned. I think it's just made me such a better angler. Making my own lures and then just picking it apart and being able to tweak it and say, okay, what happens if I change this a little bit? What happens if I put a little more silicone on? These little chatterbaits that I got. I can't get these anymore though. Cast was selling these chatterbait heads for about 6 months. I wish I ordered. I'm just about out of them. This one's a 3/8, but it's actually right in between, like a 3/8. But they got a patent. Chatterbait has a patent now where you can't buy anything where it's directly connected. You have to use like a double swivel or whatever. So these are one of the last ones where you can get it. And these ones, I think they work better than it has a big giant eye where you can put the blade on. But these things I think work better than the chatterbait. And you can finally get these coffin. You used to not be able to get these coffin blades. You have to buy like the round one, and then take like sheet metal scissors. And if you cut the edges off of the round ones that you see, then you can get this. But now you can get these blades from China somewhere, the original nice coffin blades.
But
One thing that I don't see anybody do, and for those of you who make your own lures, here's a good tip: is a white chatterbait with a white blade. Any white chatterbaits you see, it's always with like a silver or a gold
yeah.
blade. It's so hard to find white chatterbait with a white blade, and that's one of my favorites right there.
Now, do you paint, like if you had a regular silver blade, would you paint it white?
This one I did. These ones I had to paint. Yeah, I can't buy white blades. So these ones I airbrush the blades, and then I put that same epoxy coating over this blade. So I couldn't find any white ones. I find gold ones and black ones. Maybe they're out now. I haven't looked in a year or two, but yeah, I just paint these with my little airbrush gun that I use for the crankbaits and whatnot, and then put that same epoxy coating over it. And I've used the crabs. This one didn't have epoxy coating on the head. It's just a powder coated head, and you could see where the paint come off. But that blade right there, it's like a DevCon 30-minute epoxy. I found it. Some guy that was, when I first looked into like airbrush and lures, he was recommending it, and it's been great. I really like it.
So when you first got into this, like you looked at, you go to your tackle store and you're like, oh, like what do they have? Or Bass Pro Shops or whatever. And you're in there and you're like, oh, you're looking through and you're like, oh, they got like, they got more rattle traps or whatever. But you're like, oh, it's just not the right color, you know?
I mean, it's a perfect example of like this one. It's like a Little John, and they make a bunch of colors, but they don't make one like a nice natural one like this.
Natural craw, eh?
Yeah, little natural craw. So it's nice being able to get the lures that you already kind of have confidence in. It's a little different than, they're always a little bit different. Like the Little Johns will have like a rubber ball in them, where this one has like a hard steel ball. But I think this one, I wish I can get more of these. This one is even better. A lot of times you'll get the knockoff one, and it'll work better than like the original, I think. But it'll be just a little different as far as the rattle or the action, or yeah. But it seems like whenever they work better, then all of a sudden you can't find them anymore. The company probably throws a fit and it's like, hey, you gotta stop selling those. It's like, yeah, I don't know.
It's probably because they see like the mailing address and they're like, oh, that's weird. That's Rus Snyders. Huh. That's how he's winning all these tournaments. These secret stealth baits. He's making just slight changes in the blades.
Especially with like the chatter, like making your own chatter. But they hear so many jackhammers to so many, and this one that I have it's definitely different. It has a different action to it, and it hunts a little bit more.
Do you find that when you paint the blade, like, I know it, like, this might sound crazy, but like when you paint that blade and you add that first layer of white and then you put that epoxy on it, and then you take a regular blade, coffin style blade, like the same blade on a chatterbait, and you run that through the water, do you honestly feel a difference? Because I feel like you would feel a difference with the painted blade. I feel like there would be like more thump.
People always say about the thin, like having really thin blades really makes a big difference. But I mean, I catch so many fish on those thicker blades. Like, it's hard for me to justify that or think that. Sometimes I'll get one that doesn't want to start up right away. Then maybe they're not quite as consistent as a jackhammer out of the package. So once in a while I'll get one where I have to like pop it to, like, if I just start slow reeling, you can't feel it shake.
Yeah.
But other ones that I have, as soon as you make a first turn of the handle, it's shaking right away. So there's a little time with the chatterbait. It might just be like the adjustment of the eye, or I haven't really figured that out yet. Once in a while I'll get ones that don't run good, but usually I can tell pretty quick. But most of them are great.
Now, when we talk like jigs, like, do you do like football jigs, swim jigs?
Yeah, all of it. I have little finesse football. This is just little finesse football jigs, little 1/4 ounce. It's like football jig. I don't put a lot of rubber on the finesse ones, and I'll cut the top end, so it's like that. And here's the one I was using at the Kayak Adventure Series at Drew's event it's pretty tore up. I caught a lot of fish on it, but I'll show you the exact jig I was throwing. I got about half the rubber on it, and now I had a little more chartreuse, but just a green pumpkin. It had definitely more chartreuse, and I was just using a little, was this a sungill? It's a great little trailer right here, great color. Little sungill, little dipper, just on a 1/4 ounce. And that little guy was getting it done out on the river. It's been a good one. Same jig actually on the, not Sandusky. What's the one that Hobie, Saginaw Bay?
Saginaw Bay, okay.
Same swim jig, little 1/4 ounce bluegill swim jig with a little dipper. One of my favorites. But this little head, the big thing with this 1/4 ounce, funny because I gave Steve Baker, we were both fishing the Great Miami River and kind of working up together on each side, and I started just crushing him, and he was struggling in the beginning there, and he's like, man, what are you using? I'm like, here, come over here. And I gave him some little dippers, and he had a 3/8 swim jig. And I gave him the little dippers and let him literally fish right. And I just fished behind him, and we went up probably a quarter mile. And like, I don't know, might have just been the spot, but he couldn't get bit on it like at all. But the big thing I know with this, I mean, so with a swim jig, it's like just the weight of the head and the design of it and the hook. It's like when you find that the right trailer for it,
Yeah,
you know,
that sweet spot.
yeah, there could be like, I know this little dipper works perfect on this jig, and like my 3/8, I'll use like a menace a lot, or like that super speed crawl is a good one as well. And but yeah, it's definitely finding the right trailer for the right swim jig. And the big thing that you want to look for, at least on this one, is that it has, when you watch the weed guard, if you see it as you're reeling it and it's rocking side to side, especially for swim bait type trailer. If it's like a menace or other type of craw swim trailers, it's not as important. But I know for like an actual swim bait trailer, you really want to see that side to side rocking motion. And bet that with that 3/8, the reason he wasn't getting them is once he put this, it wasn't enough movement from the tail. Didn't have enough
To
water
go back and forth to
yeah,
displace.
it was just sitting there instead of that side to side little wiggle. That's what's really important, to get the right trailer with the right jig.
So for me, when it comes to, like, I'm a huge fan of a quarter ounce jig. Quarter ounce jig for me does really well on the rivers that I fish.
Like a swim
And
jig or like a bottom, like crawl type jig?
so I have quarter ounce swim jigs, and I also have like a quarter ounce style finesse like bottom contact bait football jigs that are quarter ounce. But the one thing I noticed is you have to be very particular in the size, I find, with that quarter ounce, because you could throw on something that's too small, and it's so true, like what you're talking about. It doesn't give it enough action.
Mhm.
Where having something not too big, but in that happy medium, I would say.
Having the right length too, where
Yeah,
a lot of times I'll put something on, the skirt's a little too long, and I can tell it's going to impede with the action of the craw bait, or what I would say I'm using like an ultra vibe speed craw and like a little 3/8 ounce kind of bottom jig. And those, if the skirt's too long and I basically cut it right where any of the appendages or whatever cut out or come out, I'll kind of cut it right there. So just getting the right length with the skirt can be a big thing too.
Do you use that? Do you have an aquarium, or like I use a glass cup, and I'll put that trailer on that I think is going to work, and I drop it in there, and I'm like, okay. And I
Yeah.
just kind of like watch, how does this react? And it's so true. I started out with like a longer skirt, and then before you know it, I trim it down, and then it's just like this. It gets in the water, and it hits through, and then it hits, and it's just like,
Yeah. And
and it's
sometimes
just
you have
so
too much
perfect.
rubber. Yeah, on like little finesse jigs, I've seen times where it's just like way too much rubber, especially on the little finesse ones, where out of the package it doesn't look like much, but then all of a sudden you put a trailer and put it in the water, and once it starts separating, you realize you don't need as much rubber as you thought. Other things I do put a lot, like a 3/8 ounce buzz bait, like these buzz baits right here. I'll put a lot of rubber on these here, or a lot of silicone. I'll use like 50, 55 strands on like a 3/8 buzz bait, or like a little quarter ounce jig. I'll use like 25 strands. This one's kind of messed up. It's been sitting. I haven't used these ones in a while. Just some old ones, but yeah, it's just, it depends on the bait. But even when it comes to, like on a spinner bait, I might use you know, for a 3/8 ounce, I might use like 36 strands. A half ounce, I'll use like 40, and like a 3/4 ounce, I'll use like 44. So I'm like even
Wow.
that particular when it comes to, I can kind of see where it's just about right, depending on the
Right.
weight and the size of the profile. 3/4 ounce spinnerbait, I'm bulking it up just a little bit more, and it's bigger blades and bigger, just a little bit bigger spinnerbait.
More water to displace in the
Yeah, like
end.
on this musky one, I probably got 60 strands or so on this one, 50
Wow.
at least. So,
I just want to go back to that buzzbait there.
yeah,
A lot of people like to run trailers. A lot of people like to just run buzzbaits without skirts. I personally like to run buzzbaits that have more skirt material to it than
yeah,
actually running a buzzbait with a trailer and a little bit of skirt. You know what I mean?
yeah. That's
Like,
like this one right here. You can kind of see how I cut them too. Cut them so the
yeah,
bottoms are a little bit longer and the top flares out. Sometimes I can cut that top a little bit shorter. That's like the profile. That's a good one right there.
that's a really nice one.
And just getting it's interesting with tying my own skirts and all that. I'll even have like a white buzzbait isn't like how do I explain this? Like somebody saying, all right, I'm using a white buzzbait. Like there's a big difference between like a bright, like solid white color to like a pearl to like more of an iridescent white to almost, what's transparent with just a little
Yeah.
bit like white. The transparency is like a big thing too. I think where you're going to use something like this is about a medium white, or even on the lighter side, where I'll use in a little clearer water, as opposed to, if the water is dirty, I'll use like the most solid, like this right here. It's maybe hard to see in the thing. This is a little more white. It has a little silver in it too, but just the transparencies of the whites. Or another thing is with, I guess, what am I trying to say? It's like green pumpkin is another one where, if the water's clear, I'll use it like a watermelon. It gets a little more stained, I'll go to green pumpkin. It gets a little more stained, I'll do like half green pumpkin, half a little black and blue, or something
Okay.
like that. And then if it's dirty, I'll go to black and blue. And then as far as, I'll use more flake in it when it's sunny, and more kind of pearlescent colors or shades when it's overcast. There's another thing I make that I don't tell too many people about, but I use them a lot.
Ooh, I like this. I like this.
On skirts. These are good.
Oh.
I just do them on a bead. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. So that right there, a little Rus Snyders
Yeah, you're gonna have to figure it out.
sneaky.
Yeah, I use those a lot.
I'm sure lots of people are going to be like, Russ, on that podcast, at just over an hour, you spoke about these. Like, yep, spoiler alert.
They make, I mean, you can buy that. There's, yeah, I don't know.
No. So let's just hold on here. Like, the whole skirt aspect of this, you got round rubber, silicone. Those are mostly the ones that I use. But when you start to play with these skirts, it's pretty interesting how much design and types of designs there are in these skirt materials. Like you can get like solid black color, like solid matte colors,
Especially
let's say.
now, compared to like 15, 20 years ago, 25 years ago when I started, there was this like 4 different colors of round rubber and like maybe 30 colors of skirts to choose from. Or now there's like hundreds of different, maybe thousands. I don't know. There's a lot. Now you can get like thicker silicone. You can get the standard silicone. They even have some really thin, like finesse silicone, kind of like they have on those little Kayak football jigs. Trying to
Yeah.
get some of those. Go up north. Really fine rubber. It's a good one. Just never spin it. This is one of my favorite. Not a lot of people make bluegill spinner baits, but
Oh, wow.
this one right here crushes them, especially on like all the cypress trees, lakes, Santee Cooper, Caddo, and so a little bluegill spinnerbait in Florida.
I really like that color. I really like your pattern right there. That is so cool.
It's a good one. A little purple, and it's like yellow. It's like a goldish kind of yellow with a little sparkle. It's not like, I don't know, this skirt.
And then a reddish brown head by the looks of it.
Yeah, that's all I can get with the Sharpies. I tried to it's about all I can do. I tried to use Sharpies on it, and it just kind of came out all purplish, a little bit of red. I tried to get orange on the bottom, but the orange kind of turned into a little more reddish. But hey, it works.
No, that's like, dude, I really like that pattern right there.
Yeah,
Like,
good one. This one's another little baby bass one. It's a good creek one that I use a lot. It's got some like gold, like a pearl. I know it's hard to tell, until it gets in the water. Some like this pearl gold strands that really pop.
that's exactly when you said like baby bass and then you brought it up to the camera. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
that is baby bass. That is so neat.
So there's other spinnerbait, like other brands. But I love Accent and War Eagle spinnerbait, but sometimes you just can't. You're like, gosh, I wish I had this spinnerbait and like a bluegill. Like, it's so hard to find like a good bluegill spinnerbait, really. Even the ones.
But when you know how to tie and you know how to
Oh,
make
yeah,
them,
and then you can tweak it just a little bit, and you're like, "Oh, I want it a little more like that," and it just opens up so many doors to you, and then once you finally kinda, got something that works good, and you just kinda replicate that, tie a bunch, or put it in a little vault for later to mess.
now, will you cycle through old spinner baits and like, begin to change out, or do you just strictly go and pour your whole pour, sorry if I could speak, pour a whole new mold? You know what I
I don't
mean?
pour I buy all the heads, so the heads are just I wish if we're in the tap room, I'd show you. It's just the lead, the hook, and the wire pretty much. So then with these, I'll have to paint the heads, I have to add the skirts, the wire comes a little longer, so I trim down the wire a little bit. The blades and so like Jan's Netcraft is a good place to get stuff, or Barlow's Tackle. So Cast
Yeah.
Industries is where you want to
Bar
go if you want to.
Barlow's tackle is in Texas, is it not?
I think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right.
Yeah, I ordered a Midwest finesse jig for pouring from there. So I haven't gotten to actually pouring my own jigs yet. I usually just buy my jigs and then from there I'll paint or do the powder dipping or whatnot. But yeah, no, that's cool. I always kind of wanted to. Well, one of my biggest things is with spinner baits is all the old ones I'll go through and I'll start to like, okay, I'll repaint, like I'll change the head on it, and then I'm like, maybe I want a no, I want to change Colorado blade, Indiana blade. You know what I mean? I start to switch things around, and
Totally.
I'll make bigger skirts out of it, or I'll just go with like I want like just a plain black, you know, spinner bait, and I'll just begin to change things out on it, skirt material, everything. And it's funny, I kind of got into tackle crafting that way just through altering things that I had already bought. I didn't necessarily go online, and I didn't go in like, okay, I need to buy, I need hooks, and I need jig heads, and I need some more willow blades or Colorado blades or any like what. And it was just I just used what I had, and I think a lot of times, um, you'd be surprised, like how much you just have kicking around that you could just simply change, and who knows, it may not work. I've even taken like whopper ploppers or chopos, and I couldn't get the color I wanted, so I just bought the chopo anyways, and then I brought it home, and I use just I use spray paint, but
Yeah,
um
I do that sometimes. I've done that. I've used nail polish. I needed a black,
yeah.
like Topo or Lunker Punker, or not Lunker, Whopper Plopper, and I was on Susky and I heard black and I couldn't find one anywhere, so I just got one of my old ones and went and got some black nail polish, and it worked just fine.
Yeah. And the one I painted like 2 seasons ago, that one there, I was impressed. I was really impressed. And then I started playing around with craw colors, and I just started using really earthy tones, and I just started playing around with how I would just I'd take my like these like crankbaits that I was like not using, didn't really like the color or whatnot. I was like, well, instead of going and trying to find what I need, I'll just take these, and I would just begin to paint those, and I would just add what I needed to it. And it's like just those little things, like,
Learn a
and it's
lot.
kind of
I
a
love
sense of an
that
accomplishment
process.
too.
It's a learning thing, and it's not just about getting a lure that's now going from something you wouldn't use to using, but there's a bit of knowledge that you get from just the process of creating it and painting it. And like what you're saying with spinner baits too, I went through I had so many old spinner baits from like 15, 20 years ago that didn't have the right size blades, or the skirts were coming off. And a lot of things you can keep, keep your old spinner baits, even if the skirt falls off, like all this hardware and stuff is always worth keeping. Like I keep every bit of a whore. I'm organized, but I'm also like never throw anything away. So, yeah, I went out all through all my old spinner baits and this last winter and tied on new skirts on the ones that were falling off. I take off the ones were made earlier, where maybe it was off, unbalanced as far as the blade sizes. And now I have a better understanding. I just went through and you know, not re-energized, but basically went from old refurbished. Yeah, that's the word. So refurbished a bunch of old lures that were just might as well be trash, into now, like this one's an old refurbished one here. It's a great one now. Before it wasn't, had an old skirt that wasn't working good. And yeah, this one's a probably 20-year-old head on the spinnerbait actually. And a lot of times with the paint, I've been using that same epoxy with the like painted blades and stuff like that too. Like some of the blades that I've been getting from wherever they are, the stupid paint comes off, the ones that are powder coated. I've been using that same epoxy on these blades, and you can add sometimes a little bit of pearl in it. Like, so with the epoxy, you can put in glitter or put in pearl. And that's a really cool little trick. But
It's
white
funny.
on white spinnerbait, it's a good one right here.
We're sitting here and we sound like car guys, like we're talking about refurbishing these old classics, you know what I mean? And like, if you think about it, a lot of these lures, like they are, like you said, like that's like 15, 20 years old. Like that is a, like, back in the day, that was something that was, could have been somebody's favorite spinnerbait, you know what I mean? And like, you just took it and, there's lots of new ones on the market, but instead you just went and made it your own. You gave it your own touch, your own tweaks, you paint it, and like that's
hanging on to those, put those aside. And then when you get some rainy days in the winter and stuff, and sometimes it's just a matter of, just putting a new, like switch. You have one that has a good skirt, but no blades, and another one that the skirt's falling off and it does have blades. A lot of times just as simple as, hey, let's take this skirt and put it on this one now. And it can be just as quick as that. But yeah, saving old spinner baits. I mean, even these bearings, one of the most expensive things on spinner baits is the bearings. You get like a decent bearing, it's probably 75 cents. That little bearing right there costs as much as the whole head, the hook, and the wire.
no way.
Yeah, but the cool thing about that Cast Industries too is you can customize. So if you want, this is a 1/2 ounce spinner bait. They'll have about 3 sizes of hooks that fit the mold. This might be a 4/aught probably. So you can probably get a 3/aught or a 5/aught in the same one when you order it too. So you can customize that. You can customize the length of the wire when you order it, like where the bend is, the distance from here to here. And then the thickness of the wire as well. So paying attention to all those little things, and it's by ordering it and having to say, okay, this is a 35 millimeter, 0.35 millimeter wire or whatever. And
035, yeah.
You can look at other, I don't know if it is or not, it might not be. I'm just guessing, but like spinner baits, you want the light wire definitely helps with the vibration. Like the accents are really good spinner baits. They come with really light wires, but then you're going to compromise just the integrity of the strength of it. It'll break, after a few fish sometimes. So if you're using it around really heavy cover, maybe a light wire one, even if it's going to get bit, isn't really worth throwing as much. And then other like these buzz baits that I use, I'd say this is a super, super thick wire. Like I haven't even seen wire this thick on anything really. And I love having a really thick wire for the buzz bait. This thing, I mean, I'll go through like 3 or 4 of these blades before I think I've only broke like one of these wires in my life. Like I'll wear this thing down to, here's an old one right here. This is the good one. You'd put a new skirt on that one. I'll probably just keep doing that. It's actually needs a new blade too, but this thing's pretty worn out, but actually this one's all the way worn out. But yeah, it's when they get with the buzz baits, right when they start getting to the point where it's about to break, is where they squeak the best. And this one here is just messed up with that rivet, but But it was, yeah, this thing's caught a ton of fish. And I got a little lazy. I didn't even powder coat this one. I'll just use a Sharpie on the buzz
Touch
baits.
it up.
Huh?
You'll just touch it up with a Sharpie.
Yeah, just touched it up with a Sharpie, snap a new blade on there.
So
This one might be retired. I've had this one so long. Still has a sharp hook though, but getting the buzz bait with you don't need a thin wire for a buzz bait. Unless it's like those crocodile buzz baits have a thin wire because it hits the head. If you have special ones,
that is a cool buzz bait. I got that in a Dark Horse tackle box,
Really?
and it is. I love throwing buzz baits, so I have all sorts of different buzz baits, striking to oh geez, numerous. But the head knocker buzz bait, that's a cool buzz bait, man. Like when you hit that thing, it's like
it has a lightweight catches, and they love the noise. The buzz bait's all about just getting that right noise and the right
yeah.
squeak from it. Like I said, I'll tie some brand new ones, and I always get the little rivet, and I'll get a serrated knife on that rivet, and then on this piece right here, right where both of them connect. And before I put them on, I'll get a little tiny serrated paring knife, whatever you
Yeah.
call it. I'll just cut some little grooves in it, and that'll usually help. But sometimes even after that, it doesn't get that right squeak. It's so hard to be super consistent. When I get one that's working, that noise really does make a difference. It's a nice.
Now, when you talk about just not just buzz baits, but like spinner baits and whatnot, but when we kind of go back to just talking about top water baits being treble hook baits, and where do you fall? Like just like as an angler, like are you kind of more of on the treble hook bait side of things, or are you more of like a single hook presentation guy?
All of it. I'd say I don't do a ton of finesse fishing. I can't. I mean, I've done a little bit. Catch a check in a Lake Chickamauga tournament on a minnow. Stoked about that. I got a couple minnow fish.
Nice.
Tail hollow, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm still kind of learning that, but I'm starting to understand it. But otherwise, it's a lot of spinner baits, chatter baits, swim jigs, buzz baits. I don't do a lot of deep crankbaits. I used to when I had my boat. I don't know if it's just the areas around. I used to do so much deep cranking, and I seem to never do that too much anymore. Um, but yeah, some swim baits, glide baits, top water. I'll throw pretty much all that. I don't just do a lot. I'll do some if I do finesse, it's usually like a Nico rig.
Wacky rig.
Sometimes a shaky, yeah, wacky rig Senkos. Very rarely do I pick up a drop shot or like a Ned rig. Sometimes I use a tube, but yeah, there'll be times where I try to not do that, but there's times where you kind of have no choice, or at least got to have it rigged. And sometimes the little bite window, that might be hitting a reaction bait or something shallow, but then the sun comes out, it gets calm, and you just can tell that reaction bite's kind of gone away. And so I try to, yeah, try to not be too stubborn when it comes to
You
that.
can't go you can't go wrong with the wacky rig though. Like a wacky rig Senko, like it
Sometimes it
is.
just doesn't work. It works so much, but there are times
Yeah.
where it just doesn't work. That's what I caught that big one on at like 10 killer actually on the in a little backwater kind of area off the river, on in like 6 feet of water on live scope. Actually, I was just using that wacky rig Senko on live scope in shallow water can do some damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I learned is keeping it. Josh Stewart kind of taught me that too. We had a discussion. He never lets it hit the bottom. It's like, never let it hit the bottom, really? It's like, no, I always keep it up. And since I've been using the wacky rig Senko with live scope in shallow water, man, they really do like it. Like if you can keep it just like popping like in the middle of the water column, yeah, I'll get a lot more bites doing that than I do letting it sit and having them pick it off the bottom. Sometimes they do pick it up when it sinks all the way down and hits the bottom.
Yeah.
Pick it up, but yeah, wacky rig's good.
Yeah, wacky rig is it was my favorite. It still is one of my favorite for finesse applications, but yeah, I remember back in the day, like just that was my go-to thing. Like it was the only I went out there and I just had Senkos, and that's how I caught bass, you know what I mean? And it was fun. And even my son now, I remember the first thing I showed him, I was like, yeah, wacky rig, here we go, dude. Just throw this out there.
What kind of hook do you like for a wacky rig?
So I usually use the I like the mosquito owner. The owner hook is my favorite. I've only ever had one smallmouth bend it on me, and I was pretty impressed. Like it went from being like, you know, a nice curve to like literally straightening it out like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Hard
As it,
mouth or something.
yeah, I was fishing with my cousin, and I was like, he's like, I don't really like the rod I'm using. I'm like, here, dude, just use the rod I'm using. I'm like, just cast it out. All you gotta do, and you let it sink. And then next thing you know, he's like, oh man, I think I'm snagged on a log. And I was like, no, man, I don't think that's a log, but okay. And he's like, no, it is. And I'm like, no, it's like that line's moving, like it. And next thing you know, yeah, we got that smallmouth in the boat, and that thing was 21 inch.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was like, he was blown away by the size. I remember putting it on the, like, you know, those measuring tapes that they have that you can stick on the inside of your boat to measure fish. We put it on that, and yeah, like it was like 21. It was like, holy. And I fished this spot multiple times, and it was just down there in this grass line, and it was like August too. And yeah, and I've never forgot that day. I think I even have a picture of it. Where is it? I don't know if it'll come off, but yeah, I have a picture of it up here. It's really cool. I'll see if I can take it off without taking down the whole thing. But
it's a good memory.
Yeah, it's a memory, man. And my son's in the photo too. He's all like, you know, in his bathing suit, all pumped, trying to look like he's holding the fish. But no, but I did want to touch on something here. You know, you got all this tackle, and you know, you also are wearing an iRod shirt.
Yeah.
And you have you've designed a fishing rod. So that's like kind of another accomplishment, you know, as an angler, to have, you know, you see all the big bass boat guys who, you know, they have like, you know, Kevin Van Dam. He's had multiple lineups of, you know, Quantum to, you know, Strike King and whatnot. But to have, you know, as a kayak angler, you know, pro, you have the Snyders Sniper, which is a 7'5" medium heavy moderate action rod, and it is meant for making long casts reaction baits. So that's why I kind of wanted to ask you, like, you know, my last question there was, you know, in regards to, you know, where you sit with, you know, reaction baits and finesse and whatnot, to have a rod that's full on reaction bait orientated.
Yeah.
What was that like, man?
That was cool. It was awesome. That Matt, been with iRod since I started kayak fishing. I think the first year he reached out, and I knew them from, I used to compete against Matt and Paul Bailey, these guys. His partner helps out with iRod, and I've been fishing against both of them when I was in my early 20s and knew them for a while. And as soon as I came back out here and started doing the kayak tournaments, they reached out to me, and yeah, I was happy to jump on with them. And it was a couple years later that they gave me the opportunity to come up with my own signature series rod, and it was one of the Gen 3s. They have a lot of rods in that lineup. So there's like 20 rods in that lineup. So I had to kind of look through and say, okay, what are they kind of missing, or what's something that can kind of fit in here? And yeah, I was really, really, really happy. It took 3 kind of renditions of the rod. They sent it to me, and I was like, nah, it's a little too stiff and a little too long a handle. And then they shortened the handle, made it a little softer. Yeah, and then we got it just right after the 3rd one, and I'm really happy with it. And it's a few things have been. It was designed to throw. It was designed to throw any kind of 3/8 to half ounce, mostly 3/8. Like a chatterbait with 3/8 chatterbait. Once you put the trailer on, actually, it's probably like more like a half ounce. So right in that range, but made to cast those lures just like long distances, cover a bunch of water. It's good for either a chatterbait or spinner bait, or I use it a lot on swing heads, making long casts with a swing head on like a gravel flat, and just You know, and a little extra length is not only just good for the casting, but when you're doing those long casts, being able to move more line on the hook set to get good hook sets on those long casts too. I had some shorter rods with the chatterbait, especially that I was using. And when I'm fishing like big grass flats, I was just like missing too many fish. I just couldn't pick up enough line. They'll grab it, they'll kind of come at you. And a chatterbait, that's why there's so many kind of specialty chatterbait rods, because it's one of those rods where you really got to kind of get it right in order to have a better hookup ratio. And I pair that when I'm using those, I throw it with 40-pound braid. And if I use a chatterbait though, like I don't use that rod for like if I'm skipping a chatterbait under docks or something like that. Actually, they have a different swim jig slash chatterbait rod that's a 7.2. So I'll use that one more from the rivers or if I'm doing shorter casts and stuff around things. But if I'm on like big grass flats, I'll use that Snyder Sniper. I said 40-pound braid, swing head, good for a top water. Like even like if you have to throw like they'll throw something like as small as like a Spook Junior or like small top waters. It still has a light. That's what I really wanted, something where I can throw like a little Lucky Craft gunfish is another one that I throw a lot. And
Okay.
I'll throw that on there with like 40-pound braid. And it can handle something up to like the size of a Super Spook. Might be getting a little bit heavy for it, but it'll still handle that. Or it can handle like a 1/2 ounce spinner bait, but put the 1/2 ounce spinner bait like with the trailer, like this one, and that might be a little heavy for it. But the thing that surprised me, actually, I wasn't really designing for or expecting, is it ended up being a really good rod too for like Texas rig worms. Anything from like a speed worm with like a 3/16 ounce. It's a little bit light for that, but it'll throw that. And then all the way, what it throws perfectly is like a quarter 3/8 ounce, like with a old monster or like a ribbon tail or like a 7-inch power worm or any type, not really made for like heavy cover Texas rigs. But if you're
Yeah.
dragging a Texas rig or even like a lighter Carolina rig, it would work really, like having that extra length rod would be really good for like more of a finesse Carolina rig rod too. And for that, I'll throw a 17-pound fluoro. So
You know, 7.5 to me is just like the perfect length. 7.4, 7.5. 7'5" is my favorite length for a Carolina rig rod. That is to me is just like the best length. Another interesting rod that they have in that series, and I personally used it, is the Stone Cold Swim vibe jig rod.
that's the one I throw. I skip. It's like chatterbaits, and I
Yeah.
use it a lot for swim jigs. More like it doesn't work good for the 1/4 ounce, but like 3/8 to 1/2 ounce. It's good. It's good for that. Doesn't have a light enough tip for like the 1/4 ounce swim jig. I was throwing something else, but
Yeah, because that one's a moderate fast rated. I think it's
short
3/8
handle
now.
on that one, which makes it
Yeah.
really good for skipping. Mine has a little longer handle, which is better for a little longer casts. But it's funny when people say, "Oh, this is a really good chatterbait rod or a really good jig rod," and it really depends on how you're fishing. I hear that all the time, like, "Oh, this is an awesome jig rod," but there's so many scenarios. Like you're going to use a totally different rod for skipping a jig underneath a dock than you are, like a 3/8 underneath a dock than you're going to be using for like a 3/4 ounce like football jig on like ledges or something like that. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
people get this kind of conception in their head where like this is my jig rod, this is my chatterbait rod, but it all depends on kind of how and where you're fishing, and really it's just about how long a cast you're making. If you're doing short casts or making long casts, and the weight of the lure too. But
Well, I remember when we were talking on the phone about this, and I was kind of telling you about like how I had come across this iRod, the Stone Cold Swimming, and I picked it up. I bought it secondhand, but um I was blown away with it. And one of the fun things I like to throw on it, obviously, is chatterbaits, but I would like to throw swim jigs on it. And then we're talking, and you're like, yeah, that actually is a really good like Texas rig rod too. Like you can do Texas rig
on
worms, and
the
it's
you're
like,
saying on my sniper that you're saying?
On the Stone Cold swim.
I haven't used Texas rigs on that. I have used, actually. I'll use it for kind of my backup, like light pitching rod and stuff when I'm just doing like flipping and stuff with like lighter.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what you were saying that day. You're like, yeah, you don't forget. I've done it with this too, and I didn't
yeah,
even like. It's weird to say that I didn't dawn on me to that. Maybe that would be something to do, but no. So to have your own rod in the lineup, like that is pretty
it's
sweet,
cool.
man. Like that's cool, and like you said, you've been with the company for like quite a few years, and to
It's
have
been a
them
great
reach
work
out.
with the anglers. It's one of the few companies where they'll have a number of guys that have like signature series rods where they do the same thing with me. They did a lot of guys. I just got a new one. It's actually this guy Caesar. I knew of he owns Toxic Baits. Because I've been using a lot of these like 6-inch glide baits that are good on it at Dale Hollow, and I was using my Swim Junior rod, and it was just I wasn't get. It was like a 7/8, and it was a really good rod for like casting. Maybe like a 6-inch Huddleston or 6-inch baits with like more longer casts, like on the reservoirs. But it wasn't working that good. The length of it was too long. The tip wasn't loading up. It just wasn't right for casting these glide baits, making short casts around all this buck brush and stuff like that. Like, it was getting the job done, but I'm like, this isn't right. So I was talking to Matt, and he's like, dude, Toxic Baits. Caesar came out with his was also the Sniper. We kind of had our rod at the same time. He already had his name, and I did a contest. A long story about a contest to change the name of my rod from well, I won't go into that, but yeah, some of the Snyder Sniper won, but his is called the Tox or the uh, Sniper Swim or something like that. Shoot, Toxic. Shoot, I should know it. But it's the Quarkus series, and it was a really interesting. It's like no rod I've ever picked up. It was like a 7/6, but it had a really long handle and a really soft tip too. And it was made for throwing little glide baits. It's total specialty rod, for
Hmm.
sure. Mine's definitely more versatile, where you can cover a pretty big range of lures. But this was more of a specialty rod, and I picked it up and the same lure that I was throwing on that 7/8 junior swim rod. I
Oh,
started
geez.
throwing out on this 7/6 with a long handle and a really soft tip, and it was just perfect. It was such a big difference. So getting the right rod for the right lure it really can make a big difference, not just with the casting accuracy, but sometimes with like the hook set and too. The thing with rods that I kind of break it, the way I break it down is when I have a rod with a lure, I'm like, how does this rod cast the lure? Is it making accurate casts? And then how is the rod working the lure? Whether you have to, is it working it properly as you're moving it through the water column, or with that swim bait, it needed it's a soft
Hmm.
tip. And then how is it on the hook set? Is it getting a good hook set on the fish properly?
Yeah, like how's it loading?
How is it loading on the hook set? Is the hook driving in? And then how is it while you're fighting the fish too?
Hmm.
It's hard to get sometimes rods that are perfect for every one of those aspects. But if you kind of think of it that way, like for instance, a crankbait, a really soft composite crankbait rod will throw a light Texas rig, perfectly. The tip loads up and it casts it nice. But the thing is it's too soft to get a solid hook set to
To,
drive a single
yeah,
hook in. You know what I mean?
where
With
like a crankbait is generally, the fish is
treble hooks, you need it to a
treble hooks.
so you need that soft rod.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
it's,
sweeping it.
too stiff on a crankbait rod, it's not going to load up properly to get good cast, and it's gonna be too if it's too stiff and you get a bite and it doesn't absorb that bite from having those treble hooks. You're gonna rip the bait out of it.
Yeah.
Now,
So
by breaking it down with rods and how does it cast it, how does it work the lure, how does it set the hook, and then fighting like on a trap. A big thing is just fighting the fish. You need a soft enough rod where just from it getting the head shakes with a lure like a rattle trap or a lipless crankbait, that it's going to absorb those head shakes and not throw them. So
no, I gotta say, Russ, as we come to the end of this podcast, I definitely want to just take this moment to thank you for stopping by the River Run podcast and taking, like I said, this time to come out and like talking tackle crafting. Like this is like, this is great. I've never really sat down this in depth with somebody to talk about this. So no, like I think a lot of the people who are going to be listening and watching are just like honestly probably going to be looking at all those old spinner baits or those old crankbaits and being like, what can I do with these? You know what I mean? Like, so
you could always refurbish things, you know.
Yeah, like I said, we're like two old guys talking about old cars. You know what I mean? Like we're thinking about how we're gonna refurbish it. So
yeah, it's all good. Decks and fences, refurbish those. I refurbished a lot. I have old trucks that I just have 3 trucks that are all in the early 2000s, all GMC Sierras, and I like just keeping old things and just keep them going, you know.
So at the end of it, if you want to let people know where they can find you, I'm sure that you're
just name Rus Snyders. Instagram, Facebook, Rus with 1 S, RUS, and then Snyders, SNYDERS.
Sweet. Well, once again, I'm Adam Pross. This is Rus Snyders, my guest tonight, and we hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast about tackle crafting, Tennessee River Guide, and the one and only Rus Snyders, the pro kayak angler and tackle crafting guru, we'll call him. From him and I, thank you for stopping by the River Run podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget, for future shows, like, follow, share, and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you check out our individual channels and accounts too. Want to be a guest on one of our shows and talk of adventures, gear, or products? Contact us. Thank you for watching The Noob Show with Matt Gibson, Chasing the Tide with Dustin Nichols, The Rusty Hook with John Rapp, The River Run with Adam Fraser Pross, May Contain Fishing with Daniel Woodcock, Chasing the 20s with Carlisle Esterly and Sean Lavery, Friday Night Bites with Brian Schiller. Thanks for tuning into the Paddle and Fin Network. Subscribe and always wear your PFD.